Hi. Do you know how many words there are in the English language? Well, according to Webster's dictionary, there are over 470,000. But that doesn't include all the slang words and the jargon used in science and computing. And the number of words is continually growing. There are just so many words. If you want to start learning them, where do you begin? Well, you definitely need a plan. You need a strategy. And that's what this video is all about. The first question to ask yourself is, do you really need to learn the word? Take the word cassette, for example. A cassette was something people used 20 to 30 years ago to play and record music on. In fact, many older English teachers, like me, can still remember when we used to play English recordings on cassettes. They have now been replaced by CDs or online recordings. Nobody uses cassettes anymore. It is very unlikely you will ever need to use this word, so don't waste time actively learning it. It is probably enough just to be able to recognize and understand the word, and even if you don't understand it, it will not make much difference to your overall level of English. So, for words like cassette, which are old-fashioned, rarely used, formal or specialist words, only a passive understanding is necessary, and even then, not very necessary. However, a word like optimistic, which describes someone who is positive about the future, is very common. We hear the word optimistic all the time. So this word is important to learn and be able to use. So an active understanding is necessary. The good news is that most educated native speakers know between 20 and 35,000 words. That sounds much better than 470,000, doesn't it? And even better news, a vocabulary range of 3,000 words will be enough for 95% of a person's written English, and even fewer words are necessary for spoken English. So, hopefully you are feeling more positive about learning English now, more optimistic. So, don't waste time actively learning words you will probably never use. But if you do need to actively learn a word, you need to do it properly. The next question to ask is, can you spell the word correctly? If you're going to need to write in English for your job, your studies, and especially English exams, you will need to learn how to spell the word. English spelling is notoriously difficult, so use a dictionary. To make matters more difficult, we have American spelling and British spelling, and sometimes they are slightly different. Try to use the type of spelling that you will need in the future. Some students say that they don't need to write down words because they only want to learn spoken English. But you need to know this. Writing words down really helps you to remember them. Now, the next thing you need to know is, can you pronounce the word? Take, for example, the word optimistic. Okay, we need to know the actual sound of the word. It's an op, it's not an optimistic, optimistic, okay, optimistic, okay, not im, optimistic. However, and this is something that a lot of students don't really appreciate, it's not just the sound, there's also something called word stress. Now, this word optimistic has 4 syllables. 1, 2, 3, 4. But only one of those syllables is stressed. I wonder if you know which one it is. Optimistic. I'll say it again. Optimistic. That's right. It's the 3rd syllable. Optimistic. Okay, so when you learn these words, you need to check them in a dictionary and find out what the stress is. Check the stress. Listen to it on electronic dictionaries. Great for this because they will actually play the sound for you, and then you can check the word stress. And as you write it down, record that stress so that you get it right. If you ignore word stress and get the word stress wrong, very often people will not understand what you are saying. So this word stress is really important. And then when you've written it down, say it several times until you are happy and confident. Optimistic, optimistic, optimistic. All the time you get into the habit of using that word correctly with the right sounds and a correct word stress. Now, look at this word. This is the noun. Optimistic is the adjective. He's an optimistic person, but an optimist is a person who is optimistic. Now, this one has 3 syllables. 1, 2, 3. However, the word stress is in a slightly different place. Okay, listen. Optimist. It's no longer on the 3rd position. That's right. It's on the 1st place, the 1st syllable. Optimist. Optimist. He is an optimist. Look at this word. A record. Okay, the rainfall in January was the highest on record. Okay, it was a record, the highest amount of rainfall. And this is the noun, so it's got just 2 syllables, and the stress is on the 1st syllable. A record. Record. However, the verb, spelt the same, to record my voice, I record my voice, I am doing that now, to record my voice, but the stress is on the 2nd syllable. Okay, so the words look exactly the same, they're spelt the same, but they're actually pronounced differently, so we can tell the difference between a noun and the verb by the word stress. And this is very common in the English language. So just to recap again, when you write down your words, when you check that pronunciation using a dictionary, especially electronic dictionary, listen out for the word stress and then write it down and say the word several times until you are confident at using the word correctly. Now, the next thing to know is number 4, what kind of word it is and what are the other forms. Okay, so back to our word, optimistic. I am an optimistic person, so it's an adjective. And if you're not sure about this, then you can check it in a dictionary and it will tell you what kind of word it is. And this is important because we want to use the word correctly. And to use the word correctly, we also need to know what the other forms of the word are. So we can learn the adjective, adverb, the noun, the verb, and the person. So the adjective we already know is optimistic. The adverb, optimistically. The noun is optimism. And the verb, optimize. And the person we've already had is an optimist. So if we learn these forms of the word as well, then we will make fewer mistakes. We will have more chance of getting our sentences correct and using the word correctly. But also, we've actually learnt 5 words. We started out trying to learn 1, and we've actually learnt 5 words, which is great. But it doesn't stop there, because we can then ask ourselves the question, what's the opposite word? And if you Google this, you will find the opposite of optimistic is the word pessimistic. And there's also an adverb, pessimistically, and a noun, pessimism. I'm not aware of the verb, but the person is a pessimist. And so you can actually learn, in this case, 9 words. You started off learning 1, and you actually end up learning 9 words. And this is the way to become a really effective English learner. And the final and probably the most important question is, how do you use the word? So in order to remember the words and how to use them, we need to try to create example sentences that are personal to you. For example, optimistic. I am an optimistic person. And that's true for me, so I will probably remember that. And I need to write it down, and then I need to say it several times until I feel comfortable with saying the word in a sentence. And the final thing to do is to ask yourself what words go with the word that you are learning. And you need to check this in a dictionary. And in this case, it says, I am optimistic about the future. So many students, they forget to do this part. And that means they don't really know how to use the word. Or if they do, they make mistakes and people don't understand what they're saying. If you do this, learn the words that go with the word, I guarantee your English will become so much better. So, to summarise then. First of all, do you really need to know the word? 2. Can you spell the word correctly? 3. Can you pronounce the word, including word stress? 4. What kind of word is it? And what are the other forms of the word? And finally, how do you use the word? And before we finish, some final tips. Nouns, make sure you know whether the nouns are countable or uncountable. For example, apples are countable, milk is uncountable, but this will affect the way you use those words. Adjectives. Some adjectives are positive, some are negative. For example, a slender body and a scrawny body. Both words slender and scrawny mean thin. However, slender has a positive meaning kind of beautiful, whereas scrawny has a negative meaning, like, it's very ugly, really, thin and ugly. So be careful how you use these words. You could upset someone. And finally, I'm just reminding you again, please use a dictionary. It can be electronic, that's fine, it will help you with pronunciation, it's very quick to use, but do use a dictionary. Okay. Well done. If you've got this far, you now know the 5 things you need to know about a word to be able to use it. In part 2, we will look at the best ways to organise and remember the words you learn. Until then, keep working on your English and don't forget to subscribe. Bye for now.